Hey guys, Chris here, CG Aviator in the cockpit of the beautiful Mk.IX Spitfire. This of course isn't the real Spitfire, this is a model for Microsoft Flight Sim by Flyingiron Simulations, but it's probably the closest I'm going to get. Now I'm a real pilot, my background was 5 years in the short Tucano, so I have a little bit of experience to back me up. And in this video we're going to use a checklist to start this aircraft up. We're going to take it flying from a grass strip here at Duxford. We'll do some aerobatics in it and then hopefully bring it back for a semi-professional 3-point landing. We shall see. So this video will be interesting if you just love aviation. If you're like me and you love the Spitfire, then you'll get an inside look into how it operates. But if you have this model specifically for Microsoft Flight Sim, then it'll be a decent reference for you. So let's jump straight into starting it up. So we're in cockpit now, we'll pretend we're strapped in and we're going to check the throttle quadrant. So the front left hand side, we've got the fuel cutoff lever, we'll make sure that's fully forwards. And the air screw, which is also the RPM lever, that's what modern pilots would use, is also fully forwards. The throttle needs to be a ½ inch open, and underneath the throttle quadrant area we have the carburetor filter. We'll check that forwards because we're operating on grass and we don't want that into the engine. Now ordinarily you'd get your crew chief to connect the battery manually. In this aircraft model the developers have provided us with a switch. It's the gear position switch. It's located just under the throttle, so if I move the throttle forwards it'll contact that switch and you can see the gear down indicator is illuminated and the low fuel pressure warning light is illuminated. You can click it manually with the mouse. It's here illuminated in blue, off and on. And as an aside, you can see the down indication. If you were flying at night you can cover that up for a dimming function. I think that's quite neat. So that's the throttle quadrant set up there. Just to the right of the compass, which is here, we've got the fuel cock. So we'll put that up and on for our main fuel tank. And we'll make sure that the external fuel tank stopcock, that's this one here, is forwards, which is the off position. The landing gear lever is this one here, very large landing gear lever is aft, which is down. And then we're ready to prime and pressurize the fuel. So the wobble pump is here. We can use that to extinguish the red low fuel pressure light, or we can use the electric boost pump, which is located under the elevator trim wheel. Now it takes about 2 seconds. The wobble pump takes longer, but we'll do the wobble pump because it's a little bit more traditional. It takes about 12 to 14 pumps to get the red light out. After that, we're going to prime the engine. So the priming of the engine on a 15 degrees Celsius day will take maybe 6 or 7 pumps. You can see that low fuel pressure light has now gone out. And the fuel primer is this one here, illuminated in blue. So we'll unscrew that. So 15 degrees Celsius, I checked the graph, it'll take about 6 or 7 pumps. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. If you had the tooltips available, they would tell you if you're under or over primed. And if you've not got it nicely primed, then the engine is unlikely to start. We'll check that the parking brake is on. So the parking brake lever is this one on the control column. And you can see the pressure gauge off to the left-hand side. Prior to engine start then, because we're almost there, we'll uncover the boost coil and the starter switch caps, and we'll switch the magnetos on left and right. Quick look around the cockpit. I think I've got everything I need. Quick check outside, clear prop, and I've pulled the control column aft so the tail doesn't lift after start, just in case. So ordinarily in the real aircraft you press these buttons at the same time, so the left and right button here, but we've got a click spot in the middle, so we'll click and hold and hopefully it'll fire up. So here we go. Well, I can see fire coming out the exhaust but no ignition, so I think I've maybe underprimed it. We've still, in fact, we'll give it a little bit more on the wobble pump to get that red pressure light out, and let's prime it a little bit more. 2, 3. What I should remember to do is lock that once I've primed it. So here we go, let's try again. Second time's a charm. All right, there we go. So we'll check the RPM gauge. We'll set that to about 1,000 to 1,200. You can see the oil pressure temperature is increasing, so that works out nicely. And from here we can go into the run-up checks. So for the run-up I'm going to set 2500 RPM. I'm going to check the RPM lever or the air screw control and the magneto. So here we go. Checking the brakes are definitely on. 2500 RPM. 1800. Recovers back to where it was. We'll check the magneto, so we'll check the right one first. RPM drops by about 100, 150, and then recovers. We'll check the left one. Same RPM drop. and recovers. That's a very basic run-up check, so there's more to it, but that'll do for today. We'll make sure the caps are covering the boost and the starter pumps, starter buttons, and I think we are pretty much ready to taxi. So I'm going to put the external lights on now. I'll switch off the floodlights that are in cockpit, and I'll set the QFE to 0, or set the altimeter to 0, which will give me the QFE. Alright, let's head out. The brakes are off, bit of power. And using asymmetric braking to steer it. It never ceases to amaze me how accurate or realistic Microsoft Flight Sim can look. Okay, tail drag our aircraft, so we'll weave down the taxiway, or we can stick our head out the window and have a look. And the grass strip we're going to is runway 24 right. We've got a couple of options for the takeoff. Boost options, so ordinarily 6 to 7 boost is sufficient, and the boost gauge is the smaller red one indicated here, and that's essentially the manifold pressure. So if you've ever flown a piston aircraft before, manifold pressure boost is the same, or near enough anyway, it's comparable. So we're going to use 7 boost for the takeoff. We can use 12. 12 is allowed for an hour of flight. We can even use 18 boost, but only up to about 1,000 feet, or if I'm already airborne doing air combat, then for about 5 minutes. So 18 boost is definitely the overdrive function. Okay, so we are here. Let's finish off the rest of the checks. I'm going to shut the door. Make sure it's locked. I'm going to shut the canopy. Trims. The elevator trim is neutral. That's the elevator trim here. The rudder trim can be biased to the right. I'll switch the pitot heat on. I think it's that one. The lights are on. The radios and transponder I'm not going to use. The flaps are up. We don't use those for takeoff. And now I think we are good to get airborne, so let's do it. Bit of power, bit of dab of brakes to stay straight initially. Looking at the boost gauge to set 7. Using that rudder, let the nose lower of its own accord, aileron to stay level, looking for 100 miles an hour. There we go, and we are up, climbing away, gear up. We are airborne in a Mk.IX Spitfire. Gear indicates up. Boost is set to 7. We can trim as required. And I can set the carburetor filter to the off position. So what I'll do now is I'll swing it back around for some aerobatics. I'll set to 12 boost. Max continuous RPM is 2650, so I'll set that now. There we go. And in my next video I'll go through the cruise, so I'll do a cross country. I'll use the compass, and I'll use the engine boost parameters and RPM settings for best cruise. So if you want to see that, make sure you subscribe and hit that notifications bell. But here we go, back inbound the airfield for a barrel roll. There we go. Awesome. So let's have a look here. We're going for a half Cuban 8. I'm going for a loop, maybe an aileron roll, and then I'll reposition for a visual run and a brake. Got about 300 knots, 330 knots for the loop, which we've got there. Up we go. You can hear it groaning in the background. There we go, about 2,000 feet above ground level. Lovely. Bit of an aileron roll. And that completes that short sequence. If you want to see more about flying aerobatics in the Spitfire, then put that in the comments and I'll be happy to do a video on that, because I can fly aerobatics all day long. Alright, 7 boost, 2650 on the RPM, max cruise, max continuous. We've got QFE set. The compass, we're not really using the compass, but otherwise I'd check that set. We're nice and visual with our airfield. And we'll fly through at 100 feet, turn downwind about 500 feet, less than 160 knots for the gear. And we'll try and turn final just to beam the in-use threshold so that I can roll out just prior to the wheels going over the threshold. Because of course the nose on this aircraft is so long, if you roll out on final too soon, you can't see the runway and it gets a bit tricky. Alright, here we go. No pressure. Alright. Bit of a wave to the crowds. Clear downwind. That's really easy to go through the altitude or the height. So about 500 feet downwind. Reciprocal of 24060. Speed is below 160 knots. I'm a little bit low, but we're good. Gear and flap. Now there are flap indicators on the wings. There are little tabs that you can see have popped up. Look at about 110 for the final turn, which is there. Not yet. We've got gear down, we've got flaps, the speed is good. Here's the final turn. This is where it's won or lost. I mean, look at that. That's amazing. The speed 110. Still have the runway in sight. Runway in sight. Goes under the nose. Idle. Hold the aircraft off. Hold it off. Hold it off. Ready to stay straight. Come on. Hey. As we slow down, we can bring the stick all the way back. Apply the brakes. And that was a thoroughly enjoyable sortie in the Mk.IX Spitfire. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're still here, thanks for watching. Please consider supporting the channel by liking and subscribing. Be sure to hit that notifications bell if you're interested in seeing future videos on the Spitfire. But for now, I'm just going to cruise on back past my adoring crowds. And that is it. But until the next time, take care, fly safe, and thanks for watching.